With the release of a lot of Marvel Cinematic Universe media, it's very common to see a lot of hate for the prior Marvel films, especially Ang Lee's 2003 Hulk movie. And unfortunately, I do not share that same opinion, as I believe that Hulk 2003 is actually a good movie. It may come as a surprise to many of you that one of my top 3 favorite superheroes of all time is in fact the Hulk. I mean, I create a lot of Hulk content on this channel. I feel like this is kind of obvious, but my first exposure to the character was a DVD box set of the 90s Hulk series that aired on Fox Kids. I immediately fell in love with the idea of a character whose superpower was tied to his raw emotion. Also, growing up, I've always enjoyed the more psychological characters for some reason, and despite his outward appearance, the Hulk is a far more complex character than you may realize. So of course, when I was old enough to watch Ang Lee's Hulk, I was ecstatic. I adored the movie and was under the impression that it was a beloved classic. I was quite mistaken, and audience reception to the movie was very mixed, and it was considered a popular opinion to hate the movie. I even fell into this opinion for a long time, voicing the opinion that the movie sucked. Nowadays, I could honestly care less about popular opinion. I still love this movie.
When I totally lose control, I like it.
Movie creation. At the time, the Hulk had not had too many adaptations or successful translations to live action. There was the original, more grounded take on the character starring Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. Good show too, and you should check it out. Several scripts were created for the character, even a scrap production that was already being produced with an animatronic Hulk. Finally, Ang Lee would be attached to the project after a success of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. With the success of that film and 2002 Spider-Man, it was believed that this film would in fact be a major financial success. However, the film underperformed in the box office within the second weekend of release. People seem to not embrace this interpretation of the character, but I think it's because it may not have been understood. Psychological. First off, hats off to Ang Lee, because it's very risky to make an art film out of a multi-million-dollar Hollywood blockbuster. Most movies wouldn't dare take such a risk, but Ang Lee, man, you're crazy. What's even more interesting is that it works so well with the character of the Hulk. This is a film about trauma, abuse, anger, and repressed memories. This works within the origins of the character. Now, I'm not going to reiterate the plot of this movie, since I'm sure that many of you have seen this movie already, but I will mention story beats for the video's explanation. This movie is part action movie, part psychological drama, part comic book, and a mix of many more genres. Sometimes it's so artsy to the point where at some points in the movie you'll just be asking if you're on acid, but it invokes feeling, and I think that's why people didn't know what to think about this movie, is because they felt weird watching it and didn't know what exactly to feel. Hulk. With the word feeling, we must bring up the Green Goliath himself. Hulk is all about emotion and anger, so naturally Ang Lee wanted to explore those feelings in a more complex way than being surface level. He wanted to tell us a story about the Hulk that's very true to his comic book roots, but also uniquely his own version of the character, diving into deep psychological repressed anger and helplessness within Bruce Banner. creating an alternate side to himself that's brought to the surface when he encounters his dad. I love the idea that the Hulk was always inside of Bruce, but brought to the surface when he experiences trauma and from the Gamma Bomb. Trauma from his repressed memories from his father, that darkness he's withheld within himself for years from witnessing the murder of his very own mother. Intended for him, I might add, this Hulk, when released, feels so angry, as if all this anger was built up for years and finally explodes. The Hulk is that young Bruce that had seen his mother get killed, breaking out of the man that can't even remember her own name. I adore the adaptation of comic to screen, from Bruce saving someone from a gamma explosion to the abusive father aspect. It's surprisingly true to the comics and a great adaptation of what the character is and how much of a Jekyll and Hyde parable this is. Any nitpicks I have are minor. I'm personally not a big fan of how bright green this Hulk is, and it does affect how well the CGI ages in this movie. CGI. The visual effects in this movie are still really good, especially with how the visual effects team integrates them with the destruction of actual environments. It's still top of the line visual effects, but why it doesn't age so well is actually because of the color of the Hulk. He's bright green and doesn't do the effects favors in covering up inconsistencies. Ironically, the best shots of him are when he's in the dark, my favorite scene in particular being in the first transformation sequence. Brilliant, psychological, and scary, this scene showed his first transformation slowly and genuinely makes the character look intimidating. It looks fantastic. Then you get shots of him in full daylight, and it can be a bit Shrek-ish. All in all, the effects aren't bad, it's just the color of the Hulk that ages the movie. David Banner. David Banner is the main antagonist of the movie, and it's fitting. He created the beast within the Hulk, and you can never tell until the end of the movie what his true intentions are. One moment he's horrified of what's within Bruce, the next moment he seems to want to harness the power of the beast. Ang Lee borrows elements of the abusive father storyline from the comics and runs with it in the movie, surprisingly meshing well together. Nick Nolte plays the character of David Banner so well that it almost seems like he's a different film at times.
Stop! What? Stop! What?
A phenomenal performance for a great villain, mostly.
I'll go. You just watch me go. Hit it.
I do personally believe the villain falls apart by the end when he becomes the Absorbing Man, absorbing the Hulk's energy to become a giant gamma ball. I do believe a lot of this film has the same issue the character of David Banner deals with. Tonal inconsistency. Remember how I said that this movie feels like a more elevated comic book movie? Sometimes throughout the movie, it doesn't mix very well with the overall style and visual language of the movie. I do like the comic book transition effects in the movie, but it does detract from the seriousness of some of the more dramatic moments. While this movie tries to be a psychological thriller and evoke intense reactions and feelings, it still tries to be a super comic booky in style. Those two elements don't always match, and it's understandable why some people might be thrown off by the movie. I personally don't mind the comic book-like elements, but I would be lying if I didn't admit that the movie was an insane tonal whiplash. One moment we see Bruce's mother killed in front of his adolescent self, the next moment we have Hulk hitting himself in the nuts. can be very inconsistent, but I think it's well balanced, all things considered. I did say this movie wasn't bad, but there are still elements that I'm not super crazy about. I think that even though I do like Betty Ross in the movie, I didn't really find any reason for her to be in this movie outside of calming the Hulk's rage down. Also, her performance is very stilted throughout the movie as well, like it drags the movie out a little bit, which is a shame since I think 2008 version of the character has a more integral part of the story for Betty. The runtime can also be shortened slightly to better balance the time without the Hulk action scenes. I also wish that we got more Hulk battling the military in the movie, even though that tank battle was pretty cool. This might also be a minor nitpick, but I'm also not a fan of the Hulk being 15 feet and taller. The disconnect between him and regular humans maybe is a bit too much, but that's why it's just my opinion. And Eric Bana, I enjoy more than Mark Ruffalo at times when he's not in dramatic scenes. He does feel like a bit of a robot more than a human at times. Maybe it was intentional because of the type of performance he's giving of a broken man withholding his inner self, but for me it did feel a little bit weird.
Ready to be torn off at a moment's notice. You can think what you like. I don't care, just go.
In conclusion, this movie by no means is a bad movie. I think it stays very faithful to what the character of the Hulk is, and had a couple of things been tweaked, could have been better remembered as one of the better early 2000s comic book movies. As a Hulk fan, I feel satisfied watching this movie and is one of my favorite sick movies, admittedly. Besides, no matter what you say, this movie treats Bruce Banner and the Hulk with far more respect than the MCU has in the last decade. Thumbs up in my opinion, but what are your thoughts? Comment below and let me know. And as always, make sure you guys like the video, share, and subscribe.
Talbot. Yeah? You're making me angry. Oh, am I?